What strange eerie things have happened to you? Story 1. I had what I thought was a lucid dream, where I basically watched some figure in my dark room look through my bookshelf, pat me on the head, and leave. I woke up to the news from my flatmates that someone had entered our house through the unlocked back door during the night. That's the day I decided to invest for a lock on my bedroom. Answer: I dislike those dreams that you can't tell whether it's real or a dream. Once had a dream so lucid that I woke up and everything was upside down. Not figuratively, it's like my eyesight were flipped. I realized then I can't move, struggled a bit, rolled down to the floor, and gave a few knocks on my door to alert my housemate. The door flung open, and a woman with a scary jerk long hair lunged towards me with a knife. Darn sure I had a mini heart attack before I woke myself up all sweaty on my bed. It was already morning, so I made myself some coffee to calm my nerves to the fudge down. Then, an hour later, my housemate came to the kitchen looking so pissed off and asked, "Why the hell you banged the door a couple of times just now?" "I was in the kitchen for the last hour. I thought it was you." Story 2. This isn't eerie. It was terrifying. I was 13 and 14-ish and had a couple of my baseball team friends over to spend the night, and we kept hearing this thud. After a few more times, we decided to check it out. We grab 3 baseball bats out of my laundry room, look all over the entire house, check to make sure it wasn't my dad. And the last room we looked in, I looked out and saw a man trying to climb through the window. He saw us and got the hell out of there. No sleep was had that night. Story 3. A few years ago, when I was in my early teens, I had a dream of a man on a beach flying a kite with 2 dogs running around him. A month later, on holidays in France, we were on a beach and I looked up and the same man was flying the same kite with the same dogs. Everything went cold, even though it was 30 degrees. It was one of the weirdest experiences ever. Outside my tent. Luckily, it was my last day because I was freaked out, truly terrified. GTFO and met the outfitter to get a planned boat ride out of the wilderness. I won't do another solo trip. I've been back, but with a group. Nothing weird has happened since. It feels fake in retrospect, but it happened, and I was terrified. Not happened to me, but to my mom, brother, and dad. In our old house, strange things used to happen. It was never anything serious, but balls would roll around without any starting momentum. The kettle would switch itself on, and doors would lock themselves from the inside and outside whenever my brother was in the room. My mom is into her supernatural side, so she asked the neighbors if anything had happened in the house previously. And it turns out the owner, before that previous owner, was a single mom called Jan, whose only son went off to fight in World War II and died on the beaches of Dunkirk. My mom thought that these occurrences were linked to this woman and her dead son, especially the rooms locking themselves with my brother inside. So she sat down and said something along the lines of, "Jan, I know what happened to your son, and I am sorry. You can help look after mine. Just please stop scaring us and don't hurt any of us." And within 24 hours, all of the creepy shoot had stopped, except the front gate would lock when someone left the house and be unlocked when they got back. Story 5. So I walked out into the lounge room one night in the darkness to fetch something, the only light being a soft glow from the kitchen. Now, the way the lounge room was set up, we had one single lounge in clear view from the doorway, and the light switch was a bit of a ways in. So, halfway into the room, I notice on this lounge the faint, wispy outline of a small white dog staring straight at me. It was completely, eerily still, just staring forward. The only small white dog we own was in my bedroom, and I had in fact walked past her just moments beforehand, so it wasn't her. It also didn't look solid either, like a weird line drawing made from smudged chalk, but it looked exactly like a small dog. I was instant nope and turned right around and walked out. I went back to my room and picked up my little white dog for protection, who was still snoozing on the floor, and then went to my sister's room and got her to come with me back into the lounge room. So there we both were, halfway in the lounge room, with the faint, wispy outline of this small white dog staring straight at us without moving a single muscle. After a few seconds, she gets the courage to creep a bit more forward, to reach the light switch and flicks it on. It was a fudge plastic shopping bag. A few years back, wife and I were taking a night walk. We were bored, she had a knife, and I'm more awake at night like a fudge gremlin. We get up to a canal trail and two people pass by, but they're not talking, more like an attempt at sounding like they're having a conversation with random fudge words. Like nothing they said made sense, and they seemed coordinated enough that I couldn't just chalk it up to substances. So, naturally, since I grew up by the woods, not these particular ones, however, I shush my wife. We stay where we are, and they pass us, not even glancing at us. Bed on the top bunk, leaning over, staring straight down at me. I slowly turned my head just a little to get a look at it, and it looked like the little kid from The Grudge, one of the movies we'd just watched, but shrouded in shadow. What disturbed me the most was that everyone else was seemingly oblivious. My friend, on whose bed the thing was sitting, didn't make a peep. I was too terrified to move or even call out, so the night wore on with me staring at it, and it leaning over the bed staring at me, until dawn broke. When light came, I screwed up my courage, snatched my glasses up and put them on, and then turned around to face the thing. It was a fudge black metallic balloon my friend had gotten earlier that night. Story 6. I was sleeping in my bedroom when I still lived with my parents, but hadn't slept in the house for a few years. This particular night I ended up sleeping by the house for whatever reason. In the middle of the night I would hear my name in a soft, childlike voice, then a very soft whining. Then I would hear it again, over and over again. I laid in bed, scared shitless, until I got up to investigate. Found out it was the DVD player making weird noises, and I had convinced myself it was speaking my name, trying to lure me out so it could feast on my entrails. Answer: something similar happened to me. I was about 8, I think, and I was really excited to go home and play this Sonic game I had rented for GameCube. I got home, popped it in, and went to make myself a PBJ. While I was making it, I heard a really soft Jacob. My name. Needless to say, 8-year-old me freaked out and hid under a blanket on the couch. Every few minutes I heard Jacob being repeated and grew increasingly more worried. I finally went to investigate, and it turns out part of the loading screen for the game I was playing flashed the Sega logo and went Sega, sounding a lot like my name. TLDR, I freaked myself out by playing Sonic, still a PBJ. Story 7. Had a recurring dream I was in a car accident and died. It happened so often I typed the exact events out on my computer, so that if I did die that way, someone would have proof I saw it coming. What kind of tree I hit, what bones I had broken, how I died, and how I felt myself die. I refused to drive the road it happened on. Didn't have an exact location, but just knew it was close to home for a few months, and always thought it was how I was going to die. A year later, my cousin died in this exact way. Same kind of tree, same bones broken. Small town, everyone knows everything that happens. Was close to his house. He and I were raised like brothers. Sister. And when I heard the news, it freaked me out to no end. The part that gets me the most is in my dream I heard them tell my mother. I died instantly, but I knew it wasn't true. I had felt myself die, so when they told us he died instantly, I lost it. Answer. I almost didn't write this comment because I can't begin to imagine the pain you feel when thinking about this, but I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for your loss. I hope you have found some peace with the passing of your cousin. However, and I'm not some spiritual nut or anything, I also hope you heeded the message you were given. You experienced exactly what happened to your cousin. You know how he felt. No doubt one of the sensations you experienced was the will to be alive, and not in that situation. Unfortunately, your cousin is gone, but you are still here. Life is fragile and fickle. Make the most of it while you can. Tomorrow it could so easily be taken away from you. Live your life. Experience the things you want to. Be everything you can. Story 8. I was on a stretch of highway in Iowa. Totally flat land, cornfields in every direction. There was only one other car on the highway. There was a black Cadillac sedan in front of me. I decided to pass it. As I passed it, and checked my blind spot to merge back into the right lane, it was completely gone. Just disappeared. I was the only car to be seen anywhere. I know I had been driving behind it for quite a while. I had noticed it, because you don't often see a black Cadillac sedan in the cornfields of Iowa. It was there as clear as day, and then it just wasn't. There were no exits. It didn't pull over to the side. It just vanished. I only wish I had looked over at the driver as I passed. It's one of those weird little experiences we have that we'll never find out the answer to. Answer. Several years ago, my ex and I were traveling on the highway in Ohio, I-77 to be exact. Sunny afternoon. No rain or fog. Moderate traffic spaced out as you would usually experience. I happened to notice a gray-silver car coming up to pass us on the left, going pretty fast. When it got to about 30 feet or so ahead of us, it suddenly just wasn't there. We both saw this. I recall exactly what was said. Me, did you see that? Her, it just blinked out. We were utterly dumbfounded, but for some reason, not really freaked out or frightened. I remember we talked about it for a good hour or so, and came to the conclusion that there must be some kind of advanced optical camouflage or else teleportation, because this definitely really happened. Story 9. Our apartment has high ceilings, so we got an 8-foot, bright neon yellow pole to change light bulbs. Last week, the pole disappeared. Seriously, we cannot find an 8-foot bright yellow pole in our tiny apartment. We are deeply disturbed by this. Story 10. A few years ago, my phone rang at around 4 a.m. This was weird as it is, as a 4 a.m. call usually means something bad. I hastily grabbed my phone and looked to see who it was. No number, I answered. Hello. The voice on the other end was a girl, but her inflection was the saddest I've ever heard. It sounded like she was about 2 seconds away from eliminating herself. She says, "Are you sleeping yet?" This freaks me out, but I'm not sure I'm hearing correctly, and I say, "Sorry, what?" She asks again, "Are you sleeping yet?" This time with more intensity. Her voice is the eeriest part. It sounds more panicked, and now I'm pretty freaked. I say, "Who is this?" "Anna." "Who?" "Anna." I don't know anyone called Anna, so I threw the phone down and was like, "Nope." Story 11. This is more a strange thing that happened to my mom, but I was there. I was a baby, and my mom was single, living in an apartment in downtown Atlanta. She had Cheerios for me on the kitchen table. I knocked over the box, so there were Cheerios everywhere, but she was late for work, so she left them, took me to daycare, and she went to work. When she came home that night, the Cheerios were on the kitchen table, in the shape of a giant smiley face. Nothing was missing. The doors and windows were locked. My mom called the police, but there was nothing they could do. There had been a few reported violation in the sketchy areas near us, targeting single mothers. To this day, we still don't know what happened. Story 12. When I was a kid, I was playing hide-go-seek in the woods behind my house with some friends. I had a great hiding spot behind some thick bushes. I saw a man walking down the trail towards me. As he got closer, I remember him having no face at all. No facial features, just the skin. I froze and started crying. The man kept walking by me. I ran home and never told anyone about it because I thought I was crazy. I finally told my mom about it when I was in high school. She told me about a man that lived in our neighborhood who had failed a tragic end attempt and seriously disfigured his face. He never walked the main streets, taking the back trails of the woods to go to his job and a bar where he drank all night. It's possible I saw him and was so mortified that I actually blocked out his face. Creeps me out to this day because I remember it vividly. Story 13. This didn't happen to me personally, but to my Gear 6 teacher and her husband. It seems pretty appropriate, so I thought I'd share. I guess a little while after starting a family, they decided to buy a cabin up in northern Ontario. Like a little summer getaway sort of deal. They looked around for a bit, trying to find something that would fit their specifications. Mostly a place nice and out of the way, not super crowded around a single lake like you see with a lot of cabin properties in Ontario. Anyhow, they eventually found a place that was perfect, about a half-hour drive or so from the nearest town, on its own little lake and everything. Perfect little spot, and affordable too. See, I guess things first started to get a little strange with the circumstances of how the place came up for sale. It was a property that had been taken back by the bank because its original owner just sort of disappeared. One day he's making payments, the next, the place is abandoned and he can't be reached anywhere. Just gone. And it's not like this was some sort of little shack. I mean, it was a smaller place, but the guy had sunk some serious cash into it with renovations and the like. So they buy the place, move some of their stuff up for the summer and settle in with their kids. Everything's great, everyone's having a good time. But I guess one day my teacher's sitting in the living room portion of the property, and she realizes something. She grabs the layout plans of the cabin, which they received after purchasing the place, and starts to really look them over. Soon enough, it dawns on her that something's not quite right. See, there's another room marked out on the layout that isn't in the cabin, or so it looks. She walks over to where the door should be, and it's a wall, but then she realizes that with the angles and lengths and whatnot, there actually might be another little room behind it. So she shows it to her husband, and he's pretty intrigued and says, "Hey, why don't we bust open the wall and see what's behind it?" They had been thinking about redoing the room a bit anyways, so they went right ahead. The boards come down, and true enough, there's a bricked-up doorway. Her husband would take a good swing at the bricks with a sledgehammer, and it goes right through. There was another tiny room. Now this is where things really take a turn for the eerie. The room is about the size of a large closet, square, plain walls, wood floor, nothing too crazy. It's what's inside of it, though, that was strange. A single wooden chair, facing away from the door with a light bulb hanging down from the ceiling directly over it, and on the wall that the chair was facing was a small painted self-portrait of a man in a dirty wooden frame. The picture was clearly done by an amateur, but it was kind of distorted. The colors were dark, and the guy in it was just staring forward, with these dead gray eyes and his mouth a little open. It was unnerving, to say the least. They got rid of the contents of the room and actually just ended up boarding it up again. I guess they couldn't find a use for such a small space, or maybe they just still found it too creepy. I don't know. What I do know, however, is that if I were in that situation, I would have burned that fudge cabin down and never looked back. TLDR. A creepy fucking cabin. Story 14. I used to work in a nursing home on the night shift. Often, the patients would hallucinate. One night, an old lady said to me, "There's a man wearing a blue coat holding a gun looking through the window." I asked her where, and she pointed to the mirror. I didn't think much of it and went on to the next patient. A few hours later, in another part of the nursing home, a patient said to me, "There's a man in a blue coat holding a gun to your head." Well, I thought that was pretty creepy, but old people hallucinate, so I went on with my night. Later that night, my supervisor grabbed my arm and hissed. A human jawbone. When I was 8 years old, I was living in Milford, Michigan. There was a slightly wooded field across from my aunt's farm property, down from a mobile home park called the Child's Lake. I was walking with her dog, who started digging, and I went over and picked up a jawbone. I thought it was cool, so I brought it home. My aunt told me it must be an animal's jawbone, and I went home. Found out later they found a couple victims of a serial killer named Leslie Allen Williams buried out there. He'd eliminate 4 girls from the area. Answer: this is crazy. My mom worked nights in nursing homes for years, had plenty of stories about the old folks hallucinating creepy figures at night and such. The weirdest, though, she said this had happened about a dozen times in the 3 years she worked at one place. A few hours before one of the residents passed away, several other residents would ask my mom, "Who's that little girl that was just in here?" There was never any visitors around the time of these hallucinations. A little girl popping up every now and again, right before a resident dies. Gives me the fudge creeps. Story 15. I was visiting my grandfather's grave for the first time, and as I approached it, a golden retriever appeared out of nowhere. He sat with me as I sat next to the grave, his head resting on my knee. As I was leaving, I turned around, and the dog had disappeared. Rationally speaking, I know that it was a dog, not connected to my grandfather at all, but part of me still likes to think that he came to say goodbye to me that day. Story 16. Stayed in a hotel alone during a business trip. I hung a towel on my right hand as I proceeded to wash my face at the sink. When I finished, my left hand reached out to grab the towel, only to touch skin. Wheeled around and saw that the towel was hung behind the door instead. Story 17. A couple years ago, I woke up in the middle of the night. and decided to go downstairs to get a drink. I found my 8-year-old brother staring down the sink drain, and when I asked him what he's doing, he just said they're coming. He was sleepwalking, so I took him up to bed. I once took a hike around some trails that were near to me. I'm surrounded by woods. At one point, there was a fork in the trail and I signed with an arrow on it, pointing to one of the trails, so I decided to follow it. After about a half hour of walking, I came upon a very old-looking home. This was in the dead middle of the woods with lights on. It looked like there was people in there, but no one was moving. I noped right the fudge out of there and made my way home, where I got my phone and checked Google Earth and found the trail but no building. I went back the next day in the daylight, and this one's a longer one and the weirdest shoot that's ever happened to me. One night after work, I went on a drive. At the time, I was working 7 days a week, 8 to 12 hours a day. It was rough. Normally, I went home and spent what little time I had with my SO and my computer. But that night, I decided to go for a drive. No reason, just felt like the thing to do that night. I even went pretty far out of my way to the complete other side of my smallish town, about 15 minutes. As I'm driving on this highway strip, I feel like a box is enclosing in on me. Nothing bad, more of a protective shield type thing. It was encasing me, guiding me to what I had no clue. Then it started to feel lonely in the box, like I was missing part of it. IDK, how to describe it? But a few moments later, I feel like I was starting to link with another box. My missing box I've been searching for, all of 10 minutes, LOL. But man, did it feel good to find this other box. But where was it? I'm driving and it starts to slip. I slow down and drive for a little bit, going about 10 under the SL. Then I feel it. It's close, really close, and I need to speed up. Then there it is. My missing box right directly behind me in this car. I don't see it, just link up with it. Now I had no clue who was in the car behind me, but I knew where they were going. Somehow I was following them, but I was leading. I wasn't looking at him for clues. I was always well in front and just knew the way. We traveled for about 15 minutes off the highway on some roads I've been on maybe a handful of times in my life, but I knew exactly where this car was going, where my other box was leading me. I didn't know what was going to happen when I got there. I just knew I had to meet my box. Finally, I pull up in this driveway I've never been in and wait a few moments. Here it is, and he pulls in. What the fudge must he be thinking, I wondered. A girl gets out and walks inside crying and gives me a weird look, but rushes past. I get out now and know I need to go talk to my boxmate. He starts to back out, but I beckon him to stop. Come here, he does, and I just get in his car. Never seen the dude before, never seen me before. I get in and know his name. Just his first name, though. It's Jeff. Weird, right? Yeah, it's fudge weird. I knew he'd just gotten broken up with. Pretty easy to figure out, with the context clues, but I knew without having to use those. They were just there. I came in and talked to him, asked how he was, what he planned to do. I got weird looks for a few moments. Then he just broke down, told me everything. How she was his life and he planned on ending it all. I've never been much of a person to be able to comfort others in their time of need, but I wasn't that guy tonight. Somehow I managed to say all the right things to this guy,